When I say Bitcoin, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most people, it's the price, right? But what if I told you the most important thing about Bitcoin has nothing to do with its price tag? As we look towards 2026, the real story isn't happening on some trading chart. It's unfolding in the cracks of our global systems. And today, we're going to dig into why the world might need Bitcoin way more than we realize.
Okay, but look, you can't ignore the headlines, right? I mean, this number, $250,000. That's the price Fundstrat's Tom Lee thinks Bitcoin could hit. That's the kind of number that just grabs your attention, it fuels all the hype, and believe me, he is definitely not the only one who's feeling this bullish.
Yeah, it's not just one analyst. You got guys like investor Bill Miller IV saying it's just a whole new ballgame. He's looking at stuff like clearer regulations, and hey, even old school skeptics like Jamie Dimon are now building on the blockchain. The message couldn't be clearer. Something big is shifting for digital assets. But this is the real question, isn't it? With all this chatter about charts and wild price predictions, are we totally missing the point? Is the price really the most important part of this story? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say it's not even close. So let's do that. Let's look beyond the numbers, because the real case for something like Bitcoin, it's not written on a price chart. It's actually written in the headlines we see every single day. And wow, some of those headlines are showing some deep problems in the systems we all count on. And you know what's kind of ironic? The best arguments for a new decentralized system are actually being made by the old one. I mean, every single day, it feels like we see another story that just shines a giant spotlight on the cracks in our traditional financial and government systems. So to show you exactly what I mean, we're going to look at three stories that have been in the news recently. Now, on the surface, you'd think they have absolutely nothing to do with crypto, but dig a little deeper and you'll see they have everything to do with the exact problems it was built to solve. All right, story number one. Let's start with something that, most of us just assume is a given. The right to own our own stuff, our property. But what happens when that right suddenly isn't guaranteed anymore? So this is a real quote from a newly elected official. The idea that we're transitioning to treating property as a collective good. I mean, wow, that is a huge shift away from the idea of individual ownership. And think about it, when the rules can just change and your property could be redefined or even taken, you're probably going to start looking for an alternative that someone can't just take away. Okay, story number two. This one is all about trust, specifically trust in our institutions. We all pay taxes, and we expect that money to be handled responsibly, right? But what happens when that trust is just completely shattered by fraud on a scale that's hard to even imagine? $100 billion. Let that sink in. That's the high-end estimate for fraud in just one case out of Minnesota. When that much of our money can literally just vanish, it screams for a financial system that is transparent by its very nature. All right, our last story. This one takes us to the one place on Earth your money is supposed to be 100% safe, inside a bank vault. But, as you're about to see, even that might just be a false sense of security. I know, this sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood heist movie, but it's a true story from Germany. Just picture it. Thieves literally drill through a concrete wall, break into the vault, and then they open 3,000 private safes. 3,000. People's life savings, their cash, gold, family heirlooms, just gone. And the kicker, the absolute worst part, the insurance only covered about 10,000 euros each, a tiny fraction of what they lost. It is just a brutal, brutal lesson in what can happen when you trust someone else to hold your wealth. So, okay, we've seen the problems, right? The threat of confiscation, mind-boggling fraud, and even straight-up physical theft from a bank. Now, let's pivot and look at how something like Bitcoin offers a completely different rulebook to tackle these exact problems. And this is the really crucial thing to get. Bitcoin wasn't just invented for fun in some vacuum. It was designed as a direct answer to these exact kinds of failures in the system. So for every single crack we just looked at, a decentralized network offers a very specific solution. And this is where it all clicks into place. Look at this. On one side, you have the problems we've been talking about: confiscation, fraud, theft. And on the other side, you have Bitcoin's answers. For confiscation, you get digital property. For fraud, you get transparent money. And for theft, you get something called self-custody.
Now let's make sure we're totally clear on what self-custody is, because this is the whole ballgame right here. It simply means you can be your own bank. You hold your own private keys. You can think of them like a password that nobody on earth could ever guess, and that means you have absolute total control over your assets. Nobody, not a bank, not a government, can move them, freeze them, or take them without those keys. It's a complete power shift, away from institutions and back to you, the individual.
So when you step back and look at all this together, you start to see the real revolution. It's not just about some new digital asset. It's a whole new way of thinking about the very ideas of money, property, and trust itself. And that, right there, is the main takeaway. Look, a $250,000 Bitcoin price would be amazing, sure. But the real revolution is having a choice. It's having a viable alternative, a plan B, for a world where trust in the old system just keeps eroding. At the end of the day, that's what Bitcoin is. It's a neutral, open-source protocol for financial independence. And in a world where we see information getting censored and controlled, the need for independent money is, I'd argue, just as critical as the need for independent media. They're really two sides of the very same coin, and that coin is freedom. So I'll just leave you with this one thought. We've all seen the cracks forming in the old system. If those cracks get wider, what's your backup plan?